Welcome to the special 2018 seasons of the Wealth Standard Podcast, celebrating life, liberty, and property. You are currently listening to Life Season 1.
Hi, everyone. This is Patrick Donahoe. Welcome to the Wealth Standard Podcast. And we are in episode 5. And man, you guys are going to love this interview. But we are focused on the principle of life and the idea that you are your greatest asset, your strengths, your genius, your unique abilities. They're things that really you have that are producing the income that you're receiving. These are assets that you can add to. And looking really at, I would say, a drive of everyone is to do something that's fulfilling, that they are achieving, that they're doing it in an environment that is safe and productive. And there is no better person to talk to this than Neale Godfrey. Now, this is a name you may not be familiar with, but Neale, she has written 30 books over the years, and she has been an executive, one of the first, if not the first, female executive at Chase. She's pioneered, just kind of the executive professional roles for women, and has really been a champion for good when it comes to education regarding families. And so specifically financial education. So this is an awesome interview. You can learn about her at nealgodfrey.com. It's Neale Godfrey, Godfrey. And currently she is the president of Green Street Commons, but is the chairman of the Children's Financial Network, which is, all that information is available for you on her website. So definitely check her out. It is an amazing interview. Had a great time, and I know you're going to enjoy it. So we are in season 1 life. This is episode 5. Neale, welcome to the show. It is a privilege to have you, and I'm really excited for our conversation today.
It's great to be here, Patrick.
So, Neale, I thought what would be good to begin is for you maybe to give a little bit of background of what you've done professionally, and then also maybe an introduction into the Children's Financial Network and what you're up to these days.
All right. Well, professionally, I started my career in 1972 as one of the first female executives in banking in the United States when Chase Bank decided to hire just a few women. So joined Chase, rose through the ranks, became an executive, and it was really a pretty cool time at that point. And also being sort of one of the first trailblazers was something that I took for granted, but, looking back on it, it was like, oh my God. So there was a really big glass ceiling, as you can imagine. So I hit it after 13 years, and then I left and became president of the first women's bank. And Patrick, you weren't around, but your mom would remember that women could not get credit on their own name until 1974.
Yeah, I knew that.
That's crazy.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It totally is.
So anyway, so I was running the first women's bank. I watched women be disempowered handling their own money, and I did some research to find out why, and it was because we were never taught anything as children. So at that point, I had 2 little kids, and I was a single mom, and I thought, well, that's crazy. I don't want my kids to grow up to be stupid about money. And I looked for books to teach them, and there were none. There were no books in the 1980s to teach kids about money. So then my 3-year-old daughter said to me, Mommy, why don't you write the books? And it was like, whoa. So, of course, the next thing she said was, oh, are you afraid? Which meant that I had to sort of crouch and establish eye contact and say, no, I'm not afraid.
That's the ultimate ultimatum.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, really? Watch me. So anyway, I did, write a book, the Kids Money book. And if you're going to start a topic and become an entrepreneur, in those days you needed a book as a calling card. And at that point, Simon & Schuster was the world's largest publishing company. So I dashed into them and said, ta-da! I have the Kids Money book. We can own this area, teach kids all around the world about money. And their reaction to me was, Well, thanks for stopping in. There are no books to teach kids about money. Therefore, it's not a topic of interest.
Wow.
Yeah. So also, as an entrepreneur, the deal is don't cry in front of them. Okay. So I made it outside before I burst into tears. And then I thought, you know what? They need proof of concept, Patrick. So I opened up the first children's bank at FAO Schwarz in 1988, a real bank for kids. Yeah, it was really cool. And an institute for youth entrepreneurship up in Harlem to work with at-risk kids. And I thought, okay, we're going to show them. And both were very successful. In fact, Princess Diana flew over with the royal kids to open up accounts. I mean, this was cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, okay, back into Simon & Schuster, 700 articles and TV shows. Ta-da! I'm here, proof of concept. And they said, well, there still are no books to teach kids about money. Thanks for stopping in.
Wow.
So I was like, are you kidding? So anyway, thought about it, outside crying, not inside crying. And it was, you know what? I did leveraged buyouts from my days at Chase Manhattan Bank. I can figure this out. So I bought a publishing company. I bought a division of Macmillan under the proviso that they would publish my first book. And of course I was chairman of the board, so it wasn't like a big stretch. So of course they published it. And we sold 50,000 copies. I sold the publishing company, went back to Simon & Schuster and said, I'm back. And they said, oh, here's this other book. It shows that it's a topic of interest. And then they published my first adult book called Money Doesn't Grow on Trees, A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible Children. And I got a phone call from Oprah Winfrey. Yeah.
That's like that's not the golden phone call. That's like the quadruple diamond phone call.
Yeah, it is. It's the big platinum one. And I did 13 shows with Oprah over a 4.5-year period. And that book, of course, hit #1 in the New York Times bestseller list, and sort of the rest is history. So 27 books later, and obviously being an entrepreneur, it's great to be here.
Well, it's one of those inspirational stories that, shows you the fuel that can be created by rejection and the adversity that ensues because of it. And I would say that, the first one was by the challenge of your children, and then second by Simon & Schuster twice. But I think the taking into consideration the era, because it sounds like this was early mid 80s, or was this still late 70s?
No. This was now, at that point I became president of the bank in 85, and then wrote the first book in 89, and then the second book that was on Oprah came out in 93.
Wow, and that's incredible, right? That even in the 90s, right, you didn't have just a really easy way to distribute your ideas, literature, books. You had to use the traditional channels. And today, obviously, there are so many different avenues, but still going back and looking at just the limited resources there were, it just shows how difficult it is to penetrate a market that doesn't exist. I don't even know if you call it penetration, but create a market that really doesn't exist.
Well, I never thought about it in the way that you just said it. That's really interesting, Patrick. That I guess, yes, at any one of those junctures, you could just look at rejection and say, okay, so much for that, I'm out of here. I always, when I hear no, my reaction is, they don't mean no, they mean they don't understand, so you didn't communicate well enough. Mm-hmm. And in today's world, there's so many alternatives we have in terms of social media to get things out, but we didn't. That was it. It was booked.
But here's, and I would say, Neal, the irony is, if you look at the lack of education then, I mean, there wasn't material in general, but at the same time today, I would say there's still a very profound misunderstanding when it comes to financial education, financial concepts within families, despite the amount of literature, courses, instruction that's out there. So as you look at maybe what you've been able to accomplish over the years, how are you addressing the fact that there still is a scarcity when it comes to just understanding of what to do financially within families?
Well, it's really a good point, Patrick, that we've come a long way. It was exciting to be able to start the topic. I've written 27 books on it, which sort of indicates that I've had no life, and gaming apps for kids and websites and all this other stuff, but we're not where we need to be. And I think it has to do with the fact that money is such an emotional topic for people. It's life's report card, it's you did it well, you were stupid, it's all this stuff. And it's not easy within families. Not easy. In terms of family dynamics, it's always up there. So it continues to be a topic that people are uncomfortable with.
And so, I would say it is, and that has prevented really the utilization of the information that exists to create some sort of framework within the family. So I would say within your literature, how do you get through that? I would say pretty significant obstacle, which is breaking through the emotional side, more of the I would say fear side of really identifying where you are financially. Like what are some of the things you've said throughout the years in your books and in your articles and interviews that really is that maybe there's like a skeleton key to that door. Like what's some of the secret sauce around overcoming that challenge?
Well, if you think of money as the business side of your life and your relationship, you can step away from it a little bit. Mm-hmm. It isn't who you are. You're not who you earn, what you earn. You're not, an investment banker is not more valuable than a teacher. They do different things, and society pays them different salaries. But you're not your money. And that's really what I tell people. And if you follow your passion and what you're really good at and what you really love to do, the money follows. Mm-hmm. And rich people are not happier than poor people. We know that.
Yeah. No, one of the things that I've been thinking about recently. This is an idea I learned, probably over 10 years ago, which is, you have a financial statement, but the financial statement is kind of a mirror, right? And it's a mirror in a couple of regards. Number one, your income. It's not like your employer pays you for doing nothing. Like you provide a service. You're valuable. You have this difficult to quantify. Well, I guess not difficult to quantify, but difficult to explain asset, right? Which is your position, sure. Your education, your experience, right? And your income comes from that. And then you also have expenses, which is essentially you're paying other people to do services for you. And then you have where that income comes from, which is kind of like a human. I call it the human capital financial statement, which it comes from this asset that you have, whether it's your training or your certification or your experience or your personality, your network, your et cetera. And that is something just like you can build the assets of a financial statement, in the physical world, right? Accumulating assets, et cetera. You can also build, and I would say it's easier sometimes to build the assets in the human capital statement, which is really within your control. And getting into the idea that you just said is profound, which is everybody has that unique passion, that unique genius that's within him, which is that asset that you're searching for, right? As you're building your human capital financial statement. And once you discover that, it's almost as if work doesn't exist, right? And you're pursuing something, and it is paying you, but you would have done it without getting paid for it. I think that is one of those things that exists for everyone, but also it's very hard to convince somebody of that exists, because most people are not living in the best financial shape.
No, I agree. And the whole, when you talked before about sort of looking at your assets, I love that. And your friends, your family, that, what gives you joy? And it's not going to be, wow, having a lot of money. I hope no one ever says that. It's the quality of your life, and the quality doesn't have to do with the money part of it. And in terms of work, I want you to have something where you get out of bed every day and go, woohoo, I'm going to work. This is cool. I'm loving it. Not every day. I mean, there's some days it's like, oh my God. But in general, love what you do.
I heard something, and I would say of anyone, you could maybe back this up or maybe even refute it, but it was a book that Simon Sinek did. I don't know if you've ever read any Simon Sinek books, but he was talking about how today there are challenges that adolescents are facing, that teenagers, even children, are facing, whether it's drug use, whether it's suicide. I mean, some pretty significant, pretty severe issues. And he didn't go in and claim that this was the cause, but he basically said that within the family, there's this dynamic in the workplace where the inferior way in which they're treated, or the fact that they're going to something that they despise and they don't like being there, but they're doing it because they have to pay their bills. That mentality that is established by doing it day in and day out affects the kids. And then the kids subsequently, share that burden and have those issues because of it, because they're not used to dealing with it as parents or as adults are. And so it hit me, because I have an office here of more than 50 people, and then we have some remote, a dozen and a half remote worker or guys and support staff, and it's one of those things where when I read that, like I did a very I did a lot of introspection into the environment that exists, the culture that exists, and it caused me to make a lot of changes. So looking at we say, Neal, you and I say that, and we say that that is possible. You can wake up and find a profession that you love, or find something that you love, but yet the majority of people are just going to roll their eyes. So what are some ways in which you have written about that or explained that, and have given hope to people that that is possible, that they can find something that they wake up to 90, let's say 80-20 rule, 80% of the time, right? And they love to do it.
Well, it's not easy, and remember, in the olden days, we don't have as many factories as we used to have. But I don't think that many people ever woke up and said, whoa, I'm going to the factory, I'm going to the coal mine. I don't think they necessarily felt that way. But what I think that they had in their life is the avocations and the things that they did outside of work. So I also think it's important to make sure that the other stuff that you do really warms your heart. Are you hanging out with the people you want to be with? Or is it time to maybe carve some friends and family out of that cadre? Are you doing the sports? Are you exercising? Are you doing other things that fill your heart? And that's what you have to think about too. So we do things during our lifetime. And let's say, it may be having a cruddy job, but it's to be able to afford to send the kids to private school, or whatever that is that you want to do, that you have alternatives. But at some point, you're going to get there. So there are sacrifices that we make, but it's, you would like people, especially in today's world, where you have so many alternatives, not to be, kind of knocking up against the coal mine every day.
And I would add to that, it's not this, because I think there's an idea in pursuing something which isn't an overnight thing, and sometimes I would say the frustration that exists where people have this kind of immediacy complex because of the society that we live in, that they want results really quickly. But I would say
I love that.
Creating this like mix. I don't even call it a balance, but a mix of life. It's one of those. it's one of those infinite game type of things where you're always doing it and you're always going to do it. There's never this, like perfect, balanced family or person. I don't think that's, the purpose of life, but it's always to figure out ways in which you're improving. And because, you would probably like totally laugh at me for doing this, but I have this this little app on Google Chrome that counts down my life. Like it has days and hours and minutes. And it does like a calculation in the beginning of your life expectancy, and it basically says make every moment count. And I would say as we're continually making improvements, we realize that a bulk of our time, a huge amount of our time, is spent working. Right? It's spent in an office, and being able to do that year in year out and not enjoy it. I think it eats at you. But like you said, there are so many opportunities that our current amazing society, amazing world is offering. But it takes a different paradigm, a different perspective to take to those opportunities. Whereas you first have to believe that they're possible, and then you just keep your eyes open, and those opportunities will manifest themselves. And I'll give you an example that I have, and maybe you have a couple examples too. But I was at an event recently, and the individual was asking questions along these lines, and he was in the Marines for several years, and now is working for a company that does primarily government contracting, and it's like, how can you turn something like that into this entrepreneurial venture? And we had a really cool discussion, really nice guy. And I was asking, like, what are your duties? What are your skill sets? Like, what are you trying to, what are you doing that you're paid for? And he understands import and export laws, and he knows how to create, commerce and contracts between, domestic companies and international ones. And I'm like, dude, like, there's probably a lot of companies that want to get into emerging markets or want to get into, India or Africa, and China is becoming, more of a consumer than the U.S. So those are like skills that like most companies would like pay a contractor or pay a freelancer to at least consult with them, and show them the opportunity. But it's one of those things where it's sometimes the solution, the solution is right in front of us. The answer is right in front of us, but sometimes we make it too complex.
Well, I love that. First of all, I also, with the military, I work with wounded warriors to help them become entrepreneurs, and that's one of the things that's really great. And as you're talking about this person, is we so often, like this guy's doing, undervalue our own skills.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, take a step back. Hold it. There are people out there who would love to have those skills. But I love what you said before about the fact that sometimes we also take jobs because we're on the way up. And what I want everybody to do is when they're at that job, just don't go, oh my God, it's like real grunt work. I'm moving the piece of paper from here to there. Number one, see and think about that workplace. What works, what doesn't, how would you improve it? How would you change it? Now you're starting to hone your own entrepreneurial skills. The other thing is, look at the people who are running the place. Are those traits that I like? Are those things I will never do? What can I learn from this situation? So I want everybody every single day to think they're walking into an incubator.
Yeah.
And they're only going to get out really what they put in. And listen, talk, find out, see how effective you are. If you change some sort of a way that you're acting, are you getting a different reaction from people? What happens? What is that employee you want to be? You want to be the one who walks in every day and goes, oh my God, I'm so tired, I was out all night, I'm just wrecked. Or you want to be the one who goes, hey, how are you? We all have problems. We all do. Who doesn't have problems? But you get to decide. You get to use that. And what a wonderful place to have your first job. Be that. Be that incubator.
Have you ever done well, as you were saying this, it's amazing. And what came to mind was these entertainment centers that have escape rooms. Have you heard of those before?
Sort of. Keep going. Like a WeWork thing where you walk in and...
No. Yeah. So this is more, it's more entertainment. So it's an escape room where they have, like, you go into a room and you can do it with like your friends, or you can do it just with strangers. But you go into a room and there's all sorts of clues, and you're supposed to solve all these puzzles and solve riddles and crossword puzzles and get keys, and and you're supposed to essentially escape the room within a certain time frame, and you're working with people to this person does this task or this person does that task, and there's like Harry Potter themes, there's Disney movie themes, there's Pirates of the Caribbean themes, there's Jack Bauer 24 type of themes, but you're supposed to go in and like work as a team to figure out solutions. Have you heard of those before? Those type of like entertainment centers?
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in that kind of a thing where the team has to come up within a corporation with certain tasks to make it work for everybody. Yeah. But yeah, that's great.
And that's a business. I mean, if you think about just a business, there are no businesses out there. I mean, even your Amazons or your Googles, your Microsofts. I know a lot of people that have worked there and previously worked there. They have challenges, right? Even though they're perceived as this like amazing company, they have challenges, and there are always things that can be improved on. Always ways in which you can make a process more efficient. But I would say you're totally right, and I love the idea of this this intrapreneur. So we always hear entrepreneur, but the intrapreneur is someone that is it is that like that gamer going into these escape rooms and figuring out how to solve clues and how to circumvent this and try this. And I think that mentality, right, is sought after by managers, by good managers, good business owners, because they realize that there's things that they don't see, and sometimes the way they look at things, it's the same way that you do in a sense, which is you can't see what's right in front of you sometimes, and so I love that. I just love that idea.
Within a corporation, it gets to be pretty homogeneous in terms of whatever your area is. And I think it was Steve Jobs who never had people from the same area work in the same group. It may be Bezos too, that he does the same thing.
Yeah, LinkedIn does the same thing.
And the whole point is that cross-pollination. And the guy who's an engineer sitting next to somebody who's in marketing, sitting next to someone who's doing in accounting, and I think that's really important. And just network. Go through the directory and figure out some area you've never heard of and you'd like to go find out what they do. People like to talk about themselves. And all they can do is say, no, don't bother me. But say, you know what, I don't know anything about blah, blah, blah. I would love to learn about how, your blockchain technology could be effective for what I do. Is it possible for us to spend some time together?
Yeah. You had to bring up the B word, but we won't go down that rabbit trail.
Oh, okay. I did. I brought up the B word.
Well, cool. Well, let's do this. We could probably go on these topics for much longer than you have time for. I'd love to maybe segue and for you to maybe talk about what you're doing with NealGodfrey.com and also the Children's Financial Network and the ways in which children are learning about finance. Because I have kids. I have a 3-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and
cool.
I'm right in that, and I've taught my kids quite a bit. But also it shows me that there's still not a lot of educated kids when it comes to money. They see cards, they see apps, they see Amazon, but they don't necessarily recognize, they understand the transaction side of things, but they don't understand, just the money side of things, which you alluded to. Money is more of a receipt of value than value itself. And what goes into earning money, what goes into making money, what goes into saving money, what goes into spending. So I'd love for you to maybe talk about just, what you've, I would assume, refined over the years with regards to the education you're providing to children.
Well, what I've found is that there's not one trusted source of money advice. I'm talking about the softer side of money, those conversations, the things that we're having now. how do you raise those kids to be financially responsible? How do you have the conversations with your spouse? How do you, raise kids that are happy and healthy and not spoil children? All those things. So I set up a website called nealgodfrey.com, Money for Life, for people to literally come in and be able to have those conversations and to talk about what's going on and talk about workplace issues and home issues and parent issues and kid issues. And that's really what I want to do. And I've never done a B2C. I've always done B2B. So it's pretty exciting. And now, of course, one of the big things is now what? And those of us who sort of pioneered what was going on are unfortunately pretty used to the sexual harassment that we had to put up with. And we never opened up our mouths, by the way. Never, never, never. Because we would be fired. Why would I do that? And we need to now move forward. And unfortunately, these same issues are out there. Me Too is right in our faces. And now I've started, and I'm trying to start, a movement called Now What? So if you go on to nealgodfrey.com, you'll see hashtag Now What. I would love people to come on and talk. These are men and women. We all have to come up with the solutions. And the workplace, that's it, folks. I mean, we need to change things, but we need to be generative and work together.
Well, the benefit is there have been those trailblazers. You being one of them, and I would say what I just in my perception, what I would say is an amazing shift is just the transparency that exists in the workplace right now, whether it's Glassdoor, and there's number of others, but where essentially there's this open way to communicate experience in a professional manner, and given what happened latter part of last year, right? It's one of those things where humans are humans, and there's some really unfortunate things that happen, but oftentimes there's this there isn't this clear-cut way to handle situations. And what's awesome is that a lot of issues were brought to the forefront, and now you have policy that's being created. You have really transparency and accountability that's taking place, which is awesome. And so I would say thank you for being one of those trailblazers. And I can imagine in the banking world, during that time frame, I can only imagine some of the stuff, that was going on.
Oh, that's when, God.
That's
another whole show.
Yeah, I can. Oh man, that's a couple shows probably.
That's a couple of shows. Yeah. I mean, I would give Academy Awards for the most, original sexual harassment, that somebody did to me.
Goodness.
But you know what? It was, we sort of plowed through it. And then a lot of women dropped out. But the fact of the matter is we need to surface these issues. But it is more than just coming forward. We need men to also be sensitive to the fact that there may be a predator on the prowl. They know who they are. Mm-hmm. So rather than just, let the woman get thrown out there, that say to her, hey, you know what, I'd love to join that dinner with you. Not to protect her, but just to be there. Mm. And a lot of stuff is going to start to shift. So we need the men to be there also. And all of us need to watch even our language. I mean, the worst insult you can ever give a male athlete or a male is, oh, you throw just like a woman. Boom. Shut down. Yep. So think about it. Men say it. Women say it. So we have to watch that. We have to watch our words. We have to watch what that means. Because you've just sent that message to a young kid. You know what? There's nothing worse than being a woman.
Yeah, and that's
the biggest insult. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I would say, you again, looking at the transparency that's just becoming more and more a part of our lives, that accountabilities are not to say that that's what's needed. Obviously, abiding by principles, and I would say moral principles should prevent that. But our human nature tends to influence other ways. But I would say in the end, which is awesome, is that as these things are flushing themselves out, it's creating a new level of accountability and transparency. And so, but it's one of those things where there had to be a price paid, unfortunately. But thankfully it was, and hopefully we as a society can improve in regards to those type of relationships in the workplace.
Well, we ultimately are responsible for our behavior. And it would be wonderful if leadership could mean mentorship, could mean being a protector and kind and generative, as opposed to, I'm the leader, you're not, I get to take what I want. So it's shifting the paradigms, as you talked about it before. No,
100%, and that is so well said, because I completely agree with how cultures inside of a business are becoming invaluable. And I have one of my developers, he was at a company for a really long time, and he was paid really well. He had good benefits. He was very skilled, but it was the culture that drove him out, and it's because variety of issues, right? But I would say people are slowly understanding the intangible value associated with being in a company that has good values, has good principles, and has good culture, because they're really quickly growing. And I would say companies that don't have it are, it's one of those ticking time bombs.
Well, and also I would add that it's the companies that are diverse do better. We know that.
Yeah.
So diversity is a good thing.
And this is, I'm embarrassed. I mean, again, I don't do this overtly, but I'm embarrassed to kind of say this. But I have, one of the consultants we brought in last year. She ran a really big team at T-Mobile, and just an amazing individual. She has mentored. She had mentor groups with women, and just did a ton of good there. And I should probably introduce you to because she has her own podcast too. I think you guys would have an amazing conversation. That was the first thing she said when she came into my office. She was looking around. She's like, you know what? I think maybe 30-40% increase in productivity. And I was like, what? And she said it's the balance of male and female. There's too much male going on, anyway. So you don't have to convince me of that. She pointed it out and made her case very well.
Well, it's interesting too. I'm also an executive in residence up at Columbia Graduate School of Business, and a lot of these issues we think are kind of like over with, and I was shocked. They're not. And work-life balance, and when you have females, and we are the ones who have babies, how do you handle it, and what's the office culture? And so, hey, Patrick, I'll come in as a consultant. I'll help you with it. Because you, just for the fact that you're open and want to talk about these things, that's where the change is going to take place, and then you need the, how to. So it's not, it's not men are evil and women are good. It's not that. And we all have good and evil in us. What we have to do is really nurture that good part of it and make sure it's not it's not about saying that here's the victim and here's the victor. It's not. That's not what it's about. It's about how do we raise a culture and make sure that we are diverse and protecting and doing what we want, because that's really who everyone wants to do, and wants to be. No one wakes up in the morning, I really firmly believe this, including Hitler, and says, you know what, I want to be a really bad person. What happens is they're misdirected and think what they're doing is good. And we just have to go, nope, not so much.
Yep. And there are those, that sociopathic mentality is out there, but at the same, this whole Simon Sinek thing totally, and I've talked about this on the show before, but it totally convinced me of that you can create a culture that is inviting, but yet is powerful. And the big thing, and I got to be honest, because this was like it was it sent kind of that lightning bolt of fear in me, which was this idea that somebody comes into the workplace and becomes a worse person when they go home because of the environment that they're in. and honest, and what I said to myself is that's not going to be this. I do not want that on my conscience. That is not going to be, the environment that I want to show up in. And we've made a lot of shifts because of that. And they're difficult, but Cameron Herold and Simon Sinek and a number of others, Gino Wickman. I follow a lot of these different tactics associated with being able to establish culture, establish an environment where you can not only have a lot of productivity, but also just an environment where we feel safe. And
right.
And I think that a lot, from my I have new glasses on, I would say, and looking at other companies and how they operate, and I'm seeing it in a lot of different areas. And maybe it's just me, but hopefully the shift is similar to that, in all parts of the U.S.
That's great. I mean, I think it's really good for you. Hats off. I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you for championing like all of these, because we've never met before or spoken before, and you've championed these ideas for a lot longer than I've implemented them. So thank you for the books you've written, the teaching you're doing, as well as really doing good for American families. And I definitely want to get the word out about what you're doing. Would you mind maybe ending the show is just talking about the mission of Children's Financial Network and the best ways in which we as followers, and I would say those that are listening to the podcast are definitely on the same wavelength as you, what ways that we can be involved or follow you or follow the network.
Well, thank you. I mean, the best thing to do is I put everything under one umbrella. So it's Neale Godfrey. That's NealeGodfrey.com. And you'll see different, what I call them, rooms within this. So we've got Now What, and we've got Ask Neale. I want your people to come in and ask any of those questions of me. We've got Mom Inc., which is for the working mom and the mom entrepreneurs. Kids and Money, relationships and money, charity. That whole giving back is so important and so much a part of our self-esteem. So just come on, join, follow the site, come on and ask questions and start the dialogue, because that's what it's really about.
Well, Neale, thank you so much for being on, and we'll make sure that all of your contact info, the URLs that you've mentioned, the hashtags that you've mentioned are all put into the show notes and into the email announcement. So we'll make sure of that and get you hopefully some new fans. But I really appreciate you being on. Really appreciate your time. Awesome conversation today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You're wonderful. Thanks for everything that you're doing, and you're making a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as the Wealth Standard Podcast spends all of 2018 celebrating life, liberty, and property. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll see you on the next one.